Rights activists chant slogans and lift placards during a rally near the Supreme Judicial Council in Iraq.
The group protests the honor killing of Iraqi YouTuber Tiba al-Ali by her father. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. This is Matanang Agila International. And now for the headlines. Foreign policy expert warns expanded basing could drag Philippines into U.S. and China conflict. Balikatan exercises of Philippines and United States set for April. 7.8 magnitude earthquake kills thousands in Turkey and Syria. China accuses U.S. of overreacting after jet shoot-down spy balloon. And Beyoncé sets new record at 65th Grammy Awards. A strong 7.8 magnitude earthquake has struck southeastern Turkey and Syria. The U.S. Geological Survey said the tremor clocked in at 4:17 a.m. at a depth of 17.9 kilometers near the Gaziantep. The epicenter of the quake was the Pazarkik district of Kahramanmaraş. Authorities also said the earthquake destroyed the east, south, and southeast parts of the Gaziantep castle. Videos circulating online show the debris of the historic building. Meanwhile, the dome and eastern wall of the Sirvani structure partially collapsed. Health officials reported people had died in the provinces of Aleppo, Latakia, Hama, and Tartus. Many buildings have collapsed and rescue teams have been deployed to search for survivors under huge piles of rubble. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said all relevant units of the government are on high alert. Erdogan also asked for EU's assistance. Meanwhile, thousands are reported dead and even more are injured. News sources say there are fears the number of deaths will rise sharply in the coming hours.
The European Union is responding to urgently help the countries affected by the deadly earthquake. Crisis Management Commissioner Janez Lenarčič has announced the European Union is sending rescue teams after a series of strong quakes hit Turkey and Syria. He confirms that EU's civil protection mechanism is activated to respond to the tragedy. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron vowed to send aid to the victims. Belgium, Poland, Spain, Israel, and Finland also said they stood ready to deploy teams and help. President Vladimir Putin also expressed condolences and offered Russian aid to Turkey and Syria. Putin also asked Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to convey words of sincere sympathy and support to the families of the victims.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz promised to aid on Monday after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Turkey and Syria, killing thousands of people as they slept. Scholz said on Twitter that they are following the news of the earthquake in the Turkish-Syrian border region with shock. He added that Germany will of course send help. The German Chancellor was one of the first world leaders to pledge aid. The affected countries wait for details of what help Germany will offer.
Here in the Philippines now, foreign policy experts are concerned about President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s willingness to increase areas in the country to be used by the U.S. under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. Madeline Villar-Moratillo has the details.
Foreign policy experts in the country warned that the Philippines could be implicated in the heated conflict between the United States and China. Former presidential spokesperson and Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Ernesto Abella said President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. should not have allowed the country to be increased by 4 places from the previous 5 under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA, signed in 2014 during the administration of former President Noynoy Aquino. Abella said the Philippines is not far from being like Ukraine because of President Marcos Jr.'s pro-American foreign policy.
It is not so much the apparent dangers of limited nuclear attacks against the bases, nor the moral deterioration, but that we could be dragged into a proxy war in behalf of the U.S. in their fight to ensure their dominance in the region, therefore endangering freedom, welfare, and public safety of Filipinos, endangering our independent foreign policy, the exercise of national sovereignty and self-determination, endangering the Filipino public from cyber attacks and weapons of mass destruction, endangering our freedom from any forms of nuclear weapons in the Philippine territory. Therefore, to avert the Ukraine scenario in the Philippines, we need to, as the National Security Policy Statement says, effectively use its instruments of national power.
Foreign policy analyst Rugando Sasot said President Marcos needs to be careful when entering defense agreements with the United States because the Philippines will be a pawn in the impending war between the U.S. and China due to Taiwan. Sasot clarified that U.S. National Security Strategy Plan stated that China has a plan to enter into a war with Taiwan within a 10-year time frame.
Actually, you can already know kung saan nila pwedeng ilagay dyan yung mga bases. Just look at of how the Japanese attack the Philippines from Formosa, okay, and the direction. They would still probably use that same route.
Herman Laurel, president of the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies, said the United States is known for its proxy war, which was used in Vietnam, Iraq, and Ukraine to protect its interests. Laurel said China does not want to compete because 40% of its economy depends on Taiwan. He added the U.S. wants to enter the war to revive its economy because the U.S. economy depends on arms sales.
We must succeed in a war against war. But before the Philippines can contribute to the war against war, the Philippines must contribute in the war against the Mutual Defense Treaty, the Visiting Forces Agreement, and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. And these bases, 5 of the old bases, plus the 4. That is why I just want to read one more item.
Foreign policy experts wonder why President Marcos' foreign policy has suddenly changed from a presidential campaign to a neutral one for the U.S. Madeline Villar Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Balikatan military exercises between American and Filipino soldiers will be held in April. Armed Forces spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar says that although the bilateral activities are Balikatan exercises, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, will still lead the planning and execution backed by the U.S. Armed Forces. He said the revolution will help to improve the external defense capabilities of the country's armed forces. It is also committed to combating terrorism and other security threats. It is not yet known when the exact date will be and how many American and Filipino soldiers will participate in the training. The Northern Luzon Command, Visayas Command, and Western Command will lead the Balikatan exercises.
The possibility of mandatory ROTC is close to being a reality following its passage at the Senate committee level. Meanwhile, some senators believe that this could negatively affect student curriculum if approved into law. Mayan Corvera files this report.
A Senate committee has approved a mandatory training program for all college students. Senator De La Rosa said that before Congress takes a vacation in March, it is possible that committee report on this matter will be endorsed in Senate plenary. According to De La Rosa, it will be included in the curriculum of students by 2024. The law applies to all college students in vocational schools, male and female, regardless of gender.
Sinabi ko nga, nasa konstitusyon yan, di ba? Very clear ba yung sinasabi ng Constitution? Section 4, Article 2. Very clear po sa Constitution yan. Ang opsyon na yan ay sa gobyerno. Paano ngayon kung gusto ng gobyerno mag-render ka ng military training and military service because we are under attack. We are under invasion. Ano maibigay mong military service kung wala kang military background, wala kang background sa wala kang military training kahit kunti.
In the last hearing, a group of youth appeared and insisted that the ROTC should not be made mandatory and they should be given a chance to choose whether to enter training or not. But according to the senators, the ROTC is not training young people to become soldiers or enter the military. The program includes training of young people in disaster response, personality development, and patriotism.
Siguro 50% militaristics, 25% for disaster preparedness or disaster response, and another 25% for moral values, personal discipline, lahat-lahat na. Kasama na dyan yung adherence to the Constitution, respect for human rights, and everything. So kaya po, yan ang magiging kabuuhan ng ROTC program. Hindi po puro military subjects lang ang laman yan.
Senator Robin Padilla even lectured them and insisted that it was not for militarization but for a chain of command.
Kailangan nating bigyan ng edukasyon ang ating mga taong bayan sapagkat ang punot dulo ng pagiging alipin ay yung pagiging mangmak. Alam nyo ba mga anak sa panahon, hindi nga lang tayo parehas, pero ang Cuba, noong panahon lang sila yung nagkaroon ng revolusyon. Ang unang in-encourage ng kanilang leader na si Fidel Castro ay yung tinatawag na kampanya de alfabetisasyon. Ibig sabihin yung kanilang pagharap sa kamangmangan ng tao. Kumuha siya ng mga volunteers na magtuturo doon sa malalayong lugar at doon sa mga syudad na kulang ang kaalaman. Mga anak, yung mga volunteers na yan, dumaan muna sa basic military training.
Defense Secretary Carlito Galvez said that in addition of being disciplined and patriotic, the ROTC program and training can help solve the mental health problems of the youth.
Experiential po ang training niya. Yan ang pagkakaiba po ng tinatawag natin sa NTCP. Ang experiential training is talagang po nasa sa puso niya yung lahat ng ginagawa niya. Yung survival instinct na handon. So yung sinasabi natin yung mental problem, it can be cured. Kasi yung frustration tolerance ng isang tao tataas. Meaning, meron po siyang magakuhang experience na bakit ako naghihimok ganito yung nakikita natin na mas malala pa pala yung ginagawa ng ibang tao.
The Senate assures that the ROTC will not be used for hazing or any other form of abuse. The Senate will also put in a budget of 20 billion pesos for the recruitment of soldiers that will help train young people.
Well, sa implementors itself, siniguro natin yung the best of the armed forces ang i-assign nila dyan para nga yung quality ay aangat. Hindi yung pinakamahinang klase ng mga officers, pinakamahinang sundalo, yung mga walang kwenta, yun ang ilagay doon. Hindi po tapunan itong ROTC program ng mga mahinang klase, kundi lalagyan talaga ito ng pinakamagaling nila na mga personnel.
Mayan Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Justice targets to simultaneously deport 4 wanted Japanese nationals tomorrow, February 7. Moira Encina tells us more.
The Japanese nationals wanted for a series of robberies will be deported before President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s visit to Japan on February 8. According to Justice Secretary Spinabulia, the full deportation of the 4 Japanese fugitives could be possibly held tomorrow.
Hopefully tomorrow, everybody. The worst case scenario is only 2 tomorrow, but we're working for everybody to be deported tomorrow.
2 fugitives are likely to be returned to Japan are Toshiya Fujita and Kyoto Imamura, whose cases have already been dismissed. Rimula said the courts will also dismiss pending charges against the alleged mastermind of the robbery, alias Luffy, who is allegedly Yuki Watanabe, and another Japanese deportee, Tomonobu Saito. Watanabe and Saito are both accused of violence against women and children. The 2 were arrested in 2021 by the NBI on charges of fraud and robbery in Japan. The Japanese authorities found out that the source of command on the robbery cases in Japan is in a BI detention facility using an encrypted messaging app. The secretary believes the courts can be convinced that the cases against the fugitives were invented to prevent their deportation.
And hopefully, the court today has taken judicial notice that this scheme is really being made to hamper and to frustrate the ends of justice.
Moira Insina for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
More than 50 million national IDs have been issued by the Philippine Statistics Authority. From those issued, over 30.5 million are Phil IDs and more than 19.7 million are e-Phil IDs. As of January 31st, a total of 23,256,884 Phil IDs have been delivered. 440,784 e-Phil IDs were downloaded as of February 2nd. The PSA says it is continuously working with the Central Bank of the Philippines for the rapid printing and production of IDs. It will also continue to coordinate with the Philippine Postal Corporation for quicker deliveries.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, the allocation of the special risk allowance for healthcare workers was delayed. The Department of Health will meet with the Department of Budget and Management to look into this or the said delay. Nadine Aguilar has the details.
The Department of Health will meet with officials from the Department of Budget and Management this week to discuss reforms on how healthcare workers delayed COVID-19 special risk allowance will be paid. DOH Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Vergeres said DBM Secretary Amena Pangandaman recommended measures to avoid further delays in the payment of health workers' allowances. According to the DOH database, 805,000 healthcare workers from local and national governments, including the private sector, are currently eligible and have not yet received such allowances from the government. Vergeres said about 72 billion pesos was allocated under the 2023 national budget for healthcare workers allowance, 52 billion pesos of which was under the DOH unprogrammed funds, while 19 billion pesos was under its programmed funds. According to Vergeres, this amount is still not enough to pay the DOH backlog of medical workers since 2021. In September last year, Vergeres said the DOH needed a 64 billion pesos budget to fund the benefits of health workers. Due to the issue of delayed payments to COVID-19 response benefits and allowances, some health workers decided to quit and look for another job, while others left the country to risk higher salaries and benefits brought abroad. This was followed by an order coming from President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. for the continuous health allowance for medical workers despite the expiry of the state of calamity in the Philippines. Vergeres said the COVID-19 special risk allowance will remain in place for healthcare workers until the state of public health emergency is lifted. Nadine Aguilar for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The National Capital Region, or NCR, has logged 17 new COVID cases as of February 5 this year. The DOH says this is the lowest COVID count since March 20, 2020. Octa Research Group fellow Dr. Guido David adds the 7-day average dipped to 46 COVID cases per day. He also says NCR's weekly positivity rate dropped to 1.7% as of February 4. David explains that COVID tests remained low at 35 per day per 100,000 individuals. Meanwhile, the nationwide positivity rate also further decreased to 1.8% as of February 5.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, has allowed 100,000 vehicles registered with BRAB to be franchised. The ride-hailing company made an investment pledge to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. that could result in the creation of 5,000 jobs for Filipinos. LTFRB Chairman Teofilo Guadis III says the franchises include four-wheeled vehicles and motorcycle taxis. The goal is to address the rising demand for Transport Network Vehicle Service, or TNVS. The Guadis clarified that the data is only initial because it could increase in the next 3 months to meet the needs of commuters. The LTFRB also said it is trying to grant franchises to motor vehicles in other cities such as Bacolod, Iloilo, Cebu, and Davao.
Petroleum products will have a big-time rollback tomorrow morning. The largest rollback is for diesel at 3 pesos per liter. The rollback price of gasoline is at 2 pesos and 10 centavos per liter, and it's going to be 2 pesos and 30 centavos per liter for kerosene. Clean fuel will cut their prices at 12 midnight. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., Philippines Shell, Sea Oil, and Petrogas will roll back their prices. The price adjustments at the pump will be for the 6th time this year. Coming up, China says the U.S. overreacted by shooting down the balloon. Protesters swarm a Tel Aviv city center in Israel in an anti-government demonstration. And Ecuadorians vote on a referendum to allow the extradition of criminals. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by Final Match Security and Investigation Agency.
When marimba rhythms start to play.
Susunod sa Counterpoint. Walang prenong mga tanong.
How do you handle this bashing? Did it ever cross your mind that you might lose the election nung nakaraan?
Derechahang sagot.
I wanted to prove to the people that I could be a leader that could be trusted.
Kasama si Atty. Sal Panelo at Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte sa Counterpoint. Tuwing Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi dito sa Net 25.
Meron diyang pinapatawad na kita.
Well, hindi naman siya humihingi ng kapatawaran, sis.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Security is being beefed up at the U.S. Capitol ahead of President Joe Biden's State of the Union address. Biden will be addressing both houses of Congress tomorrow at the Capitol. The most visible measure is the non-scalable security fences being erected on the Capitol grounds. There will be temporary road closures as well. Behind the scenes, expect more police and security personnel to be on the grounds as the president arrives. Because the address is considered a national special security event, the Secret Service oversees much of the planning. So far, police are not reporting any specific threats. But earlier this week, Democrats wrote to the House and Senate leadership expressing concern about security. They say they fear for the safety of the president, dignitaries, and guests who will attend the speech. They are upset that metal detectors have been removed from the entrance to the House chamber. They add there are ongoing threats being made to lawmakers.
China has said it respects the Biden administration's decision to postpone a visit by Secretary of State Antony Blinken to Beijing after a Chinese high-altitude balloon was spotted in U.S. airspace. China's foreign ministry said the role of Chinese and American diplomats is to properly manage bilateral relations, particularly to manage some unexpected situations in a cool-headed and prudent manner. It added that neither side has ever announced that there would be a visit. As for Washington postponing Blinken's trip, the Chinese ministry stated it is a matter for the U.S. to make its latest announcement, and Beijing respects that. Meanwhile, China confirms that a balloon identified by Washington flying over Latin America is Chinese after a similar device was shot down by the U.S. over the weekend.
有关的这个无人飞艇来自中国，属民用性质，用于飞行试验。受气候影响，而且自身控制能力有限，这一飞艇严重偏离了预定路线，误入拉美和加勒比上空。中国是负责任的国家，一贯严格遵守国际法，已同有关各方进行通报并妥善处理，不会对任何国家造成任何威胁。各方也都对此表示理解。
China is unhappy with the U.S. decision to shoot down a surveillance balloon that floated over American soil for several days last week. A military jet downed the balloon Saturday off the U.S. East Coast. In a statement, the Chinese government says it reserves the right to take further action in response. It did not provide further details. China said the airship was a weather balloon that accidentally drifted off course. On Saturday, U.S. President Joe Biden ordered the military to shoot it down once it was over the ocean so it would not pose a threat to the safety of Americans. It landed in about 14 meters of water. China said the U.S. overreacted to the situation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says it was irresponsible for China to send the airship into American airspace. The issue prompted Blinken to cancel a weekend visit to Beijing aimed at easing tensions between the two global powers.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed that Israel will carefully study the possibility of supplying Ukraine with defensive weapons. He says their weaponry aid will include the Iron Dome air defense system. He asserts that Israel would determine the issue in light of national interest. Yet Netanyahu clarifies he does not want a confrontation with Russia in Israel. He underscores the fact that Israeli and Russian warplanes fly within spitting distance over the skies of Syria.
For the fifth consecutive week, tens of thousands of protesters filled the streets of Tel Aviv Saturday night. They are angered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial legal reforms. Crowds carrying blue and white Israeli flags braved the rain, swarming the city center. They carried signs that labeled the new government a threat to democracy. Other signs read, "Save Israel's democracy from Netanyahu." Local media reports that protests were held in 20 cities across the country. The demonstrations have become a weekly fixture on Saturday evenings since Netanyahu's new government took office in late December. Netanyahu has warned of growing violence if the protests continue.
Israeli authorities have repeatedly demolished a Palestinian village, leaving residents without shelter. They call the settlement illegal for being on state land. The residents claim their ancestors have owned the land for generations. Maria Finoshina tells us more.
This Bedouin village, which lies near an ancient cemetery in southern Israel, has been demolished by the country's forces over 200 times, and every time has been rebuilt.
2 big bulldozers, they came, and they worked maybe 2 hours. They destroy this house and all of the trees that was behind, and all of this now became to be rubble.
The reason? Israel considers it illegal, saying it is built on state land. It views its residents as trespassers and wants them gone. Locals disagree, saying their ancestors have owned this land for generations and have provided such evidence.
Here the original document since 1905. Here write who's sold this land, and my grandfather bought this land during the Imperial Ottomans. Here during 1926, during the British mandate and the stamps, this land belonged for us. And now Israel say you are invaders.
The residents appealed to an Israeli court.
My grandfather asked them to recognize this land at 1973. 50 years, there is no answer.
Israel began relocating the Palestinian Bedouin community shortly after the state was born in 1948. Within the next 5 years, almost all of them were displaced. But two big families decided to return to Al-Araqib and fight for their land. Aziz is from one of these families.
During 1953, they asked my grandfather to move from here to the north for 6 months. They need this land to train the soldiers. In these 6 months, they make a law in the Knesset that give the Israeli government the right to confiscate my land. And they use this law against us until now.
Local residents are Israeli citizens on paper, but have no access to public services like roads, electricity, or running water. They say they not only don't feel equal, but also feel they are treated as enemies.
The Jewish people live an abnormal life. They walk in the street with their hand on a gun. They sleep with their hand on a gun. They know that they usurped the land of the Palestinian people by force.
Sheikh Sayyah At-Turi, the head of the family and the leader of Al-Araqib community, spent months in an Israeli prison.
82 cases have been opened against me. For what? To get off my land? Where does the state of Israel get this land from? This is our land, and the land of our fathers and grandfathers. I do not accept bargaining over land, even if a meter is worth $1 billion.
The first demolition began in 2010 under Israel's land administration order and has repeated numerous times over the following decade. Now the Jewish National Fund is in charge of this area. We contacted them asking for an interview. They responded with a written comment. We also contacted the land administration, but have not received a response.
More than 70 years of occupation, as if Al-Araqib was non-existent. They demolished the village 211 times. On the 211th time, they came to demolish the mosque in which women pray and sleep. There is no law in the state of Israel that protects Arab citizens in this state.
We found women sitting by the graves, mosque and other demolished village infrastructure. This is their only remaining safe place.
The Israeli side is against us. They didn't leave us a house, a car, or even the mosque, which was 50 years old. This is our land, and we will stay on it. We will not abandon it.
During one of the protests, locals wrote a song that has become a sort of anthem for the resistance.
No, no, we shall not be moved. This is our land. You can destroy our houses. We shall not be moved.
Al-Araqib, or rather what's left of it, is one of more than 40 Palestinian Bedouin villages in Israel's southern Negev area that are referred to as unrecognized. The struggle for land ownership started 75 years ago when the State of Israel was established and has continued ever since. Locals say they are not ready to give up and will continue their fight. But when you come and see what's left of their life, you are left with the feeling that this battle will be very hard to win. Mrifnoshna Ati from Al-Araqib, unrecognized village.
To Peru now, where the anti-government violence continues unabated. On the weekend, new street demonstrations gripped downtown Lima. Thousands of protesters clashed with riot police as the sun went down on Saturday. Police responded with tear gas. Although the crowds dispersed, they regrouped in an effort to reach Peru's Congress. Several people suffered injuries, and police did not say how many protesters were arrested. The latest trouble came after Congress refused to move up elections and delayed further discussion on the matter until August. Peru has endured weeks of violent protests since December 7th, when then-President Pedro Castillo was arrested for attempting to dissolve Congress and rule by decree. So far, 48 people have died in the demonstrations.
Still in South America, Ecuadorians voted Sunday in a referendum that will decide whether to allow extradition of citizens linked to organized crime. The South American country has been rocked by a dramatic increase in violence. Presently, the extradition of Ecuadorians is prohibited by the country's constitution. But conservative President Guillermo Lasso proposes legalizing it as a means of dealing with a crime wave. The violence has claimed the lives of two candidates in local elections that are being held alongside the referendum. Ecuador is sandwiched between the two drug-producing giants of Colombia and Peru. It has become a major hub for global drug distribution in recent years. There have been bloody territorial battles between gangs, some with ties to Mexican cartels. The country's murder rate doubled between 2021 and 2022. Up next, a train carrying hazardous chemicals derails in the U.S. state of Ohio. The Stonehenge of the North opens to the public in England. And the honor killing of a YouTube star sparks outrage in Iraq. Please stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return after the short break.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center. This portion is brought to you by Daiwan Industrial Sales.
In the U.S., the cost of homes is on a downward trend in the state of Nevada. Experts say it is because of builder incentives and a decline in mortgage rates. Anna Kui reports.
Nevada's housing cost continues to trend down due to rising mortgage interest rates and slowing home purchases. Real estate transactions, buying or selling, typically slows down in December through the first few months of the year and eventually picks up again in the spring, according to industry experts. According to a recent report from the Las Vegas Realtors, home values fell for the seventh consecutive month, with the median sales price for a single-family home to $425,000 in December, down 1.4% from November. Compared to the same time last year, it is still up 2.6%, but down almost 12% from $482,000 in May of 2022. Newly built single-family home price in Las Vegas also fell for the sixth consecutive month, with a median price of $449,900. That's down 2.2% from November, but it's still up over 3% year over year. Nationally, builder incentives and a slight decline in mortgage rates in December helped push new home sales up, according to the National Association of Home Builders, or NAHB. We spoke with Macy, a local real estate advisor, about some of those builder incentives.
Builders have a lot more inventory that they're carrying over from last year. So they're definitely offering a lot more incentives, especially when you go with their in-house lenders. They are crediting all closing costs. They're throwing in appliances, which they normally would. They're giving you primary locations, which normally you would be charged an arm and a leg for a lot premium.
NAHB reports across the U.S., sales of newly built single-family homes increased in December by 2.3%, with the median price of $442,100. That number is down 3.7% from November, but still up 7.8% compared to a year ago. New home sales fell in all four regions in the U.S. On a year-to-date basis, it is down 23.5% here in the West. Anna Cui, Las Vegas, Nevada, reporting from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A train carrying chemicals derailed in the U.S. state of Ohio, causing a massive fire and triggering an evacuation of residents in the area. The National Transportation Safety Board said some 50 cars from a 140-car train went off the tracks in the village of East Palestine, not far from the state border with Pennsylvania. There were no reports of fatalities or injuries resulting from the derailment, but a massive blaze broke out at the site. An investigation is ongoing as to the cause of the derailment.
The death of a tourist in Mexico prompts calls to regulate popular accommodation websites such as Airbnb and Booking.com. The concern follows the death of 29-year-old Angelica Arce, who succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning while on a vacation to watch the Mexican Grand Prix. Last fall, Arce and two siblings rented a short-stay apartment in Tijuana through the online platform Booking.com. Inside, a poorly installed water heater was leaking carbon monoxide. All three began to feel sick and were hospitalized. Arce died in hospital. She is one of several people killed recently by suspected carbon monoxide leaks in Mexico. That put pressure on authorities to regulate online vacation rentals. Arce's relatives hired a lawyer to try to get compensation from the property owner and Booking.com. In the absence of regulations, there is little progress.
In an effort to preserve the millennia-old monuments, 2 sections of the Thornborough Henges have been donated to historic England. They are now under the care of English Heritage and are free for the public to visit. Sara Alcantara tells us more.
England on Friday opened public access to a little-known Neolithic complex of huge circular earthworks seen as rivaling Stonehenge in importance, after the site's owners gave it to the nation. Thornborough Henges are located in Yorkshire and, before their opening, were listed as a heritage site at risk. Now, the charity English Heritage is in charge of managing a site it has called the Stonehenge of the North. The site is made up of 3 henges, or giant circular earthworks, more than 200 meters or 655 feet in diameter. Let's listen to Joe Savage, the interpretation manager for English Heritage.
Thornborough Henges is a collection of prehistoric monuments of huge size. We're standing in just one of them, and it's about 200 meters across. There are 2 others within this collection, and they comprise this circular earthwork with banks all the way around. They were built 4,500 years ago, around about the time of Stonehenge.
This potentially makes the site older than Stonehenge, dating from around 2500 BC, which also features henges. Both were built before Britons had metal tools. The earthworks at Thornborough may originally have been covered with a mineral called gypsum and glowed white, English Heritage said. Still visible today are circular banks up to 4 meters high and encircling ditches. 2 of the henges were given to the nation by Tarmac Group, a road-building company that owned the land. The 3rd henge is still in private ownership and under woodland. A visitor called Mr. Jeff Walbank gave his insight about the opening of the Thornborough Henges.
I've known about the Thornborough Henges a long time, but I never knew where there was access onto them. And we were watching the television this morning, and it was on about English Heritage opening the site up today. And so I thought we'd come and have a look.
Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Sarah Alcantara for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Pakistan's exiled former military ruler Pervez Musharraf died in a Dubai hospital on Sunday at the age of 79 after a long battle with an illness. He was a key U.S. ally during the war on terror.
The death of a young YouTube star at the hands of her father has sparked outrage in Iraq. 22-year-old Tiba al-Ali died as the result of a so-called honor killing on January 31st. Women's rights activists demonstrated Sunday near the Supreme Judicial Council in Baghdad, demanding a law against domestic violence. The young woman had been strangled by her father, and police unsuccessfully attempted to mediate the dispute between Ali and her relatives. A day later, the father surrendered to police and confessed to murdering his daughter. Ali resided in Turkey and had come to Iraq for a visit. Unverified conversations between Ali and her father appear to indicate he was unhappy about her decision to live alone in Turkey. Ali had gained a following on YouTube. She posted videos of her daily life in which her fiancé also appeared. Forest fires in south-central Chile leave at least 23 people dead. More than 230 blazes are burning in the country's forests amid a blistering heat wave. The dead include 2 crew members of a helicopter that crashed while fighting fires. 1 firefighter also has been killed and 8 others are injured. Many of the fires continue to burn out of control. They have destroyed 88 homes and chewed through 47,000 hectares of forest. Temperatures of more than 40 degrees Celsius are hampering efforts to tame the flames. Also hindering the battle is the rugged terrain and poor roads. The government extends a state of emergency to include more of the southern part of the country. Several countries have offered to send firefighters to help. They include Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Mexico, and Spain. Coming right up, LeBron James is poised for an NBA scoring record. The 65th Grammy Awards is filled with lively performances and historic wins. And real-life Squid Game competition is a war zone. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Together, Sunday 25.
Digital media conglomerate BDG announced that it will slash its workforce by 8%. The company will also shut down its news and gossip website, Gawker. Chief Executive Brian Goldberg says BDG is facing a surprisingly difficult first quarter of 2023. He explains a decision to reprioritize some of its investments must be made. Goldberg says this move would result in laying off 8% of the media company's full-time staff. BDG purchased the rights to Gawker in a 2018 bankruptcy auction after the gossip website was forced to shut down.
Tech giants Google, Apple, and Amazon will report their latest results as shares in Meta skyrockets. This after the Facebook owner posts a smaller than expected slump in sales for 2022. The results of the world's biggest tech companies follow several weeks of unprecedented layoff rounds. Meta says sales fell last year. This is the first time it occurred on an annual basis since the company went public in 2012. The social media giant said sales dropped 1% to $116.6 billion. But it also announced that the number of daily users on Facebook hit 2 billion for the first time. However, CEO and founder Mark Zuckerberg says he is upbeat about the future. He points to the success of short videos and a better delivery of ads. Shares in Meta jumped as much as 25%. This sets the bar high for the earnings announcements by the other tech giants. Ahead of the February 9 trade deadline, the Dallas Mavericks have successfully acquired the Brooklyn Nets point guard Kyrie Irving, forming a tandem with fellow superstar Luka Doncic. The Mavs are sending Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith to the East, including a 2029 first-round pick, 2027 and 2029 second-round picks. Markieff Morris will reportedly head to Dallas as well. Irving previously requested a trade out of Brooklyn, his hometown team that he joined in 2019. However, his time there was marred by multiple controversies, including his vaccination status and criticism over alleged anti-Semitic beliefs. Irving is an 8-time All-Star, former NBA champion, former Rookie of the Year, and 2014 FIBA World Cup MVP. The Mavs will be his fourth team since making it to the league in 2011. Meanwhile, fellow Nets star Kevin Durant will reportedly be pursued by the Phoenix Suns once he becomes available.
One of the oldest records in American sport is set to fall this week. LeBron James may finally eclipse Los Angeles Lakers legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the most prolific scorer in NBA history. For the best part of 4 decades, Abdul-Jabbar has owned the NBA's all-time scoring record of 38,387 points, a mark that many thought might never be beaten. Yet after a dazzling 20-year career, the 38-year-old James stands just 36 points away from finally passing Abdul-Jabbar. Given he has averaged 30 points per game this season, the only question is where and when the record will fall. The Lakers host Oklahoma City on Tuesday and the Milwaukee Bucks on Thursday before hitting the road to take on the NBA champion Golden State Warriors. The most likely scenario is that James will claim the record at some point in the next 2 home games.
The 65th Annual Grammy Awards was held Sunday night in Los Angeles, California, and the star-studded event was filled with lively performances and historic wins. Viola Davis's Grammy win earned her the EGOT status. She is now a winner of an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. She earned the coveted title after bagging a Grammy for her audiobook, Finding Me, a memoir. Beyoncé led the field with a total of 9 nominations and scooped up 4 awards, making her the winningest artist in Grammy's history. Harry Styles won the Album of the Year award, while Lizzo, Adele, Kendrick Lamar, Brandi Carlile, and Bonnie Raitt also took home golden statuettes.
Contestants in Netflix's real-life Squid Game competition screamed for medical help as they feared frostbite and hypothermia in -3-degree temperatures while filming in the United Kingdom. The secretly filmed adaptation of the wildly popular South Korean hit series will offer the largest TV game show prize in history with 3.7 million euros. The producers encouraged the participants to cling on under reportedly insufferable conditions. One player said it was like a war zone. The player added that people were getting carried out by medics, but they couldn't say anything. If they did talk, they were kicked out. Angry contestants claim the filming conditions were inhumane. Netflix has yet to respond to allegations.
Terminator star Arnold Schwarzenegger was involved in a car accident that took place in Los Angeles. Sources say the 75-year-old actor was driving around the city when a female cyclist suddenly swerved into his lane. 3 witnesses claimed Schwarzenegger did slow down but still hit the cyclist. First responders took the cyclist to the hospital where she was treated for minor injuries. Reports say the individual was in a stable condition. Meanwhile, initial investigations say the Terminator does not appear to be at fault in the incident. Authorities insist the actor could not have done anything to avoid being hit. Schwarzenegger also took the bicycle involved to a local bike shop for repairs. And to help you start this week, here's a quote from David Dweck, an investor, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. Mondays are the start of the work week, which offer new beginnings 52 times a year.
That is when I look at my smile. It's so big enough to cover the whole week.
You know, not everyone appreciates the Monday, and we all have this kind of hatred for Monday.
You were just telling me earlier. For some reason, it's like...
For some reason, we feel that way. But, you know, you have to set the mood for the whole week with your Monday. So that's
it's make or break. So you may as well, like, do well on a Monday.
If you hate your Monday, you will more likely hate the whole week.
Exactly.
So set it right. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.